On this episode, we head north to Denali National Park in Alaska, where private cars are restricted. Then we visit Moose Pass, where drivers ignore the speed limit and no passing zone. We drop in on the Alaska Center for the Environment in Anchorage. Alaskan winters create difficulties for pedestrians with disabilities. Downtown Anchorage is becoming more pedestrian-friendly. And finally, we look at a meaningless don't walk signal. Stay tuned. We're in Denali National Park talking with Nick Hardig. What do you do for the Park Service here?
I manage the transportation system, so I try to allow all the visitors that come into the park to have means to get in, which is a bus transportation system.
Some people, they think of Denali, they think of Mount McKinley. What else is there in the park besides the mountain?
We do have the biggest mountain in North America, or the tallest mountain, but we're really a wilderness park where we have some of the best wildlife viewing opportunities in North America. We might be called the Serengeti of North America. We have a lot of caribou, bears, wolves, Dall sheep to be seen on the park.
Now, you have a lot of visitors here. How do you manage to bring that many visitors into a wilderness area and still have the animals around?
The way we do that is we keep people confined to buses. So when they enter the park, they enter 50 people to a bus. And that allows us to have an interpreter on board. They can point out the wildlife if they're hard to see. And also it means we have a lot fewer vehicles that go down the road. So there's a lot less of an intrusion, a lot less noise on the road, less dust and congestion. So animals will walk right across the road and ignore a bus that's stopped and watching. So we have 300,000 visitors go down the park road every year, but we only have a 110-day season. So we have to jam a lot of people through here in a small amount of time. But keeping them in buses means the wildlife don't really notice how many people there are, I think.
What would happen if you widen the road, put in big parking lots, let private cars come in? What would that do to the park?
That's a good question. Our feeling is that if we had a lot more vehicles traveling down the road, or perhaps smaller vehicles but a lot more of them, that animals would act differently, that they wouldn't want to cross the road, there would be a lot more noise, and that a lot of them would get acclimated to visitors so that they would interact with the cars and the vehicles more. They might change the way they move. For instance, you might have bears that would choose not to have cubs or to walk with those cubs near all the transportation and all the cars. We might have some changes in the migratory movements of animals because of all that traffic. So we do feel that a lot more traffic can mean less wildlife. In fact, there's another highway in Alaska that used to have a lot of wildlife viewing, but they have less now, and they think that might be related to the quantity of traffic on that road.
This road's been closed to private vehicles for quite a number of years now. Have other national parks looked at your example to see what can be done to eliminate the private car?
I think that they have. Fortunately for Denali, we didn't have a highway that reached the park until about 1972. So people used to come up by train, and then they would get into a bus and travel down the park road. So we didn't have a lot of pressure for cars. Once the highway arrived, we knew that we wanted to keep things working as well as they did, so we restricted travel down the road. Other parks used to have very few visitors who might arrive by car, and then they gradually grew and had more and more vehicles, and it's hard to push them out once they're in. So we had a very good position in the beginning because we had all of our car pressure arrive at once and we could keep it out. Other parks have had that grow with time, and they would like to be like us, and I know they have a hard time dealing with their car problem. But there's it's very hard to change things quickly. So yes, Yosemite and Grand Canyon and Mesa Verde, there are a number of parks, Acadia National Park in Maine. A lot of parks are trying to adopt our system, maybe not completely, maybe just get rid of a lot of cars, but they're trying to have better public transportation systems. And I'd like to think that they look at us to see how a successful system can work.
We're in Moose Pass, Alaska, talking with Nancy Erickson. How big is Moose Pass?
Well, I would say the people that live right here on the highway, maybe between the two signs on either end of town, maybe about 50. And then if you count north of town, then maybe a community of maybe 150 or so.
Does Moose Pass have a traffic problem?
Yes, Moose Pass has a bad traffic problem.
What? How can a city that size have a problem?
People are, when they're coming through here, they're not coming here. They're going somewhere else, and they have their minds on getting to Seward to fish or getting back to Anchorage after a long weekend, and they have a problem with reading the 35-mile-an-hour signs in town and don't want to slow down.
There's also a do not pass sign. Do people pay any attention to that either?
No, they don't. A lot of times you'll hear somebody honking their horn, and that usually means, okay, here comes a car and it's going to be passing, and you can hear them gear up and away they go. And I always cringe because I think, oh my gosh, you know, if anybody's on that highway or anybody steps out and they're not waiting for this car in another lane, it's just a matter of time, I think, before somebody's going to get hurt. You know, we had someone hurt way back in 1964. 2 kids were killed, or not maybe 64, but in the 60s. And it'll happen again, just a matter of time.
We're talking with Dennis Owens. What have you done in response to the speeding problem?
I've made up large 4x8 signs, 2 to be exact, painted them white, and then with orange fluorescent lettering depicting the problem. And I've also painted numerals on the pavement to try to get people to notice the speed limits during Moose Pass.
Have you tried working with the state government or the regional government about getting something done?
Yes, I've tried with Department of Transportation Maintenance, engineering, and their attitude is rather lax. And to get anything done, it sometimes can take months. And the maintenance response to putting numerals on the pavement is that, well, you can't see those numbers in the wintertime, and we maintain that we really don't need those numbers in the winter. It's the summer tourist season that we need them, and they seem to be working.
So what sort of reaction have you gotten? What have your neighbors thought of all this?
I've gotten positive feedback and thank yous, actually. And I know it'll work. I've seen it in other communities. So I'm going to continue this drive to alert the public and the officials to our problem here. Hopefully one of these days we'll have a safe highway through Moose Pass.
We're in Anchorage, Alaska, talking with Cheryl Richardson with the Alaska Center for the Environment. What is the center?
The center is a 25-year-old nonprofit organization. It represents the grassroots folks of Anchorage, the neighborhoods and the people who care about their community. We make sure they've got a voice in the decisions that are made here.
And what do you do for them?
I direct the transportation project. So for about 10 years, we've been trying to make sure that there are safe places to walk and some street trees to walk near and bicycle paths and buses. So people have transportation choices that are safe. And attractive, I guess.
And speaking of safe and attractive, we're on 5th Avenue. What's been done along here that might be good for pedestrians?
We're very excited. The recently passed Mayor Mystrom took bond money from Anchorage and put in wonderful planters, widened sidewalks, and defined the edges of the road with some decorative fencing. 5th Avenue has been spruced up in a big way within the past year, and we all appreciate the extra color and separation from the roadway and the noise that you can probably hear on camera.
And Are there other places in the city where pedestrian-friendly improvements like this have been made? What sort of things have you been looking for?
Yes, things are changing. T21 is the federal law. The predecessor was the ICE-T, Surface Transportation Act. And since then, we have been seeing more money go into making it safer and more pleasant for pedestrians. One of the city's major projects, again under Mayor Maestrom, was to improve West 15th Avenue through a low-income neighborhood that was basically getting hammered by commuter traffic several times a day. And in this case, they turned the edges of the road into a parkway by removing rows of more or less underused housing and commercial and turning that into parkway. We have separated pathways now where there used to be asphalt. We've got median lane planting with trees coming along and undergrounding of utilities. So this neighborhood can thank Mayor Maestrom for having given them a major lift in property values and safety. Now you can get across the street without fearing for your life. And this is all under construction today, and we look forward to its completion.
Now, what are some of the problems pedestrians face up here in Anchorage?
Well, we are the north. We are the subarctic. It's dripping today, and in the winter this would be snow. And we do have to walk in the snow. Our children are walking to school, and many of us are walking to work. We live near residential neighborhoods are right here half a mile from town. So it's very important that we have sidewalks that aren't so icy that we're falling down, which frankly does happen. So sometimes our engineers forget that when they're doing a safety project, pedestrians are a part of it. Our mayor had good vision, and we hope that our traffic engineers and our design engineers will also keep this in mind as they design roads. In my neighborhood, we're doing a major safety project in a residential area that's designed for a transit corridor. It's supposed to be very friendly for buses and apartment houses, and yet the gentleman felt that it was not necessary to take telephone poles out of sidewalks. And so we have one half of the street that will be unsafe and impassable in the winter months. So it's frustrating for us that safety still tends to mean safety for cars and not pedestrians. We have another situation that's frustrating to us down near Ship Creek. It's our wonderful downtown fishery, one of the only king salmon fisheries in the world, I think, that's in a downtown location. And again, the thrust was on to move the trucks from our port to the major highways, and the engineers forgot. We've got fishermen down there with families and coolers and kids at the fishing poles half the summer. And we've got families trying to get from one part of town to another along the same route. So again, they gave us shoulders instead of sidewalks and a separated pathway that's been in the design works for over 10 years. But we see things changing, but golly, it takes 10 years. After these projects are built, it'll be another 10 to 20 years before we'll go back and reassess whether or not pedestrian safety is adequate. So every project counts, and every project should maximize bicycle and pedestrian safety, because it just takes so long to come back around and do anything about it in the future.
We're in Anchorage talking with Stan Wolf, who's an accessibility consultant. What is an accessibility consultant?
Well, what I do is I help people in the design stage, particularly architectural design, to make their facilities accessible and usable for people with disabilities.
We're up in Alaska. You have a bit of snow and a nice long winter. What sort of issues does that raise for people with disabilities?
Well, quite a bit of the time I use my wheelchair for transportation, and I try to use sidewalks when they're cleared of snow, and snow removal does become an issue because when you're confined to a wheelchair, it just takes one snow berm or a small patch that's not removed, and you've got to go back, and sometimes you can't even make a 180-degree turn, so you've got to back up, and using sidewalks really does become an issue. And here it's an issue about 7 months a year. And you are continually dealing with snow and ice and trying to get around in those kind of conditions.
Is this a design issue, a maintenance issue? What has to work for you to be able to get through?
Well, I think a lot of times initially it's a design issue because the snow may not be removed simply because there are obstacles in the sidewalk to prevent snow removal equipment from efficiently removing the snow, such as steel bollards that would be some type of marker, or various traffic devices, telephone poles, that sort of thing, particularly on older streets. Once you have a properly designed sidewalk, then it becomes more of an issue of what kind of equipment can be used to efficiently remove it, and how much money do you have to spend on that removal. So it becomes both initially it's a design issue, and then at some point it becomes a maintenance issue.
Anchorage has quite an extensive trail system. What happens with it in the wintertime?
The trail system in the bike trail system is primarily used by skiers and ski journers. It's marginally usable for wheelchairs if you can get onto the trail. Typically, if it's very cold for a period of time, you can use it with a wheelchair because the trail itself is hard enough. If the temperatures are warmer, you can't because it's too soft. And quite a bit of the time you can't get to the trail because of a snow berm that's in the way or something like that. Primarily in the winter times when I'm using my wheelchair for transportation, I'm either on the sidewalk or in the street, and quite honestly, quite a bit of the time I'm in the street. Residential streets, sometimes more heavily traveled roadways. It's downright dangerous.
We're in Anchorage talking with Dwayne Adams, who's a landscape architect with Land Design North. What is Land Design North?
Land Design North is a firm here in Anchorage. We have about 19 people right now, and it's primarily landscape architects. I think there's 15 landscape architects and 4 either graphics folks, computer technicians, administrative staff, but it's almost all landscape architects.
Where are we standing?
Well, we're in Town Square Park right now, which is kind of the center of Anchorage. When we had our Millennium celebration, this is where it happened, even though it was about -10. This is, believe it or not, where we had our Millennium celebration. There were fireworks behind where we're standing right now. There was a fountain with a kind of a borealis sort of a look to it that's created through fiber optics that shoot into a sheet of ice. And so this was quite a huge area as a part of that, and it is really the heart and soul of a lot of Anchorage. The banners you see on this building, the Center for the Performing Arts next to me, they talk about certain bands that'll be here, and this is where a lot of those bands take place. There's brown bag lunches, music that happens quite a bit, major festivals, and so this really, to a great degree, is the heart and soul of Anchorage, right where we are, our town square. And it really is formed as kind of a big bowl with a fountain in the middle that really provides some masking of the traffic noise, and it's a real nice place to come and visit. Almost all tourists to Anchorage come through here. They love the flower display and the quiet and the ability to stand here and look around and see a Wyland whale wall on one side, the Center for the Performing Arts, and just all the things that are going on in the city. This really is our heart, great degree.
And the streets along here has some special landscaping. What's the story on that?
Yeah, these are the 2 major arterials that feed into town, 5th and 6th Avenue. 4th Avenue, which is just to the north end, is primarily the small retail center of downtown, and then 5th and 6th Avenue are part of that, but probably step up more into larger retail, as well as some of the major professional offices that serve downtown. Anchorage Fifth Avenue Mall is located on that. So they really are, to a great degree, a major part of the circulation system that get people to the major retail portions. Now, recognizing that, 4th Avenue was our first effort at really putting together a pedestrian environment. We shrunk the size of the street. It went from 4 lanes of traffic to 2 lanes of traffic with parking. The sidewalks, which were about 8 feet, were broadened to anywhere from 10 to 13 feet. And as a result of that, we created, I think, what's become a real nice pedestrian environment. A lot of room for window shopping. In some instances, there's an opportunity for sidewalk dining. A lot of the restaurants have taken advantage of that. And a lot of room for people to sit, window shop, and at the same time circulate and visit and see a lot of the things that are going on. There's now a real active sidewalk vendor population that I think generates a lot of business for them, and just the people going to dine even there, sometimes going to the restaurants. There's a real nice relationship, just kind of a synergy that all these different things have done that I think have made 4th Avenue in particular very pedestrian friendly. Now, 5th and 6th Avenue are a little bit different because they're major arterials. There's a need to maintain a certain volume of traffic in the minds of the traffic engineers, and so there's not really a lot of opportunity to reduce the travel lanes, although we have done that at certain ends of that circulation system. Now, recognizing that though, we do have to realize there's a lot of retail activity, and as a result of that, there is a need to provide a pretty safe pedestrian environment. And so we've done a number of things. Behind us, you see the trees, and those trees were something that really in the public involvement process were something that were very important to the public. So in all the improvements where we can get about 10 feet or so, we eat more where we can, we do get an opportunity to provide some trees and make that part of the kind of the border between the automobile and the pedestrian. So we do get a relatively safe pedestrian environment. We try to separate that with the trees where we can. We do have some ornamental light fixtures that also, I think, provide that, as well as urban furniture like trash receptacles, ash urns, bicycle racks, and other things that I think offer a sense of pedestrian separation from the street. So putting that whole thing together, it's making the best of what we can along the arterials, providing for the pedestrian, and trying to enhance the shopping activity and the retail activity on the street.
And here in Alaska, you may have some challenges that are a little different than more southerly climates. How tough is it to get a tree to grow here?
Well, it's just the other side. This side of impossible, I think, is basically at the. One of the problems is, first of all, with the cold soils, as you get to depth in the soils, even though it may be 60 degrees up top, it as you go lower, because of the kind of the relationship of temperature to soil, the soil thermodynamics, basically, it gets colder as you go down to a certain point before it starts warming up. Plants need about 50 degrees where the temperature to really grow, and so as a result of that, we only have about 1.5 feet that we can grow plants. So everything has kind of a pancake root structure. So as a result of that, we've had to devise ways of expanding the amount of soil that's available for the plants. Plants need, like a 4-inch tree needs about 200 cubic feet of soil. And in all honesty, in our initial efforts, we didn't provide near that. We provided more like 20 to 25 cubic feet of soil, maybe 30 cubic feet of soil, and the trees did great for like 10 years. And then after 10 years, they all of a sudden hit a wall, and some of these that you can see behind me, if you look, you'll see a little bit of dead growth on the leaf tips, and that's pretty indicative of some sort of soil problem, and that really is primarily a limitation of the nutrients within the root ball area. Our soils, because we're in an Arctic environment, as we build a structure, whether that be a sidewalk or a street, we have to provide free draining soils. And what that does, it gets rid of the capillary space and provide larger voids so that water drains through. We don't want water sitting in our road surface, because when it freezes, it expands, causes cracks and the disintegration of the surface. So we really have the science about roads down pretty well. Free draining soil, get rid of the water, but the problem is that's actually contrary to what we need for good tree development. So with respect to trees, what we've done is finally, after realizing that we aren't providing enough space, the new projects that we've done in the last 4 to 5 years, we've started expanding the rooting material so that we have about 250 cubic feet of soil. And as a result of that, we've had, in order to achieve that, really, what we've done is we've basically built bridges over this soil so that our sidewalks now bridge planting beds with tree rooting and material, good soils that allow for good growth and provide for a good, smooth pedestrian area. But again, it's a bridge that basically is from the back of curb to the building surface that rides this planting bed and allows us to get good amount of material to grow good trees, and we think it's going to be real successful. Again, the first plantings lasted about 10 years. We hope these will last 30, 40, maybe even 50 years with any luck. But it is a bit more challenging than it is in a lot of places where you don't have frozen soils. You know, that structure isn't a big deal, because you can, as long as you got good compaction and you're moving the water away for the most part. In a place like Seattle or Boston or any other places that don't get tremendous depth of freezing, trees can grow underneath the roads, they can grow underneath the sidewalks. That's not the case here. They simply won't grow there.
We're at 5th Avenue and F Street in Anchorage, Alaska. This is a T intersection. F Street's a one-way street heading away from 5th Avenue. There's a signal here to stop the traffic on 5th to give pedestrians a chance to get across the street. But when the signal's red on 5th, there's also a don't walk signal, the crosswalk going across F. That might make sense if this were a cross intersection instead of a T, or if F Street were one way going the other direction. But the way the intersection is designed, there's no possible conflict between vehicles and pedestrians at that crosswalk when the don't walk signal is on. Instead of the engineers taking a close look at possible vehicle-pedestrian conflicts, they use the cookie-cutter solution, and pedestrians get a totally meaningless don't walk signal.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.